Shelby. For collectors, hearing the name is enough to immediately associate it with some of the most classic sports and muscle cars of the 60s. To recognize quality and a knowledge of automotive engineering unsurpassed in 3 decades. To say it is to speak of legends. And in Palm Springs, the legend that is Carroll Shelby received a royal tribute. Carroll Shelby's reputation as one of the automotive world's top drivers and designers has been growing since the early 1950s. In that time, he has become friend to many of the most well-respected people in the industry. During the Rick Cole Palm Springs race and auction, Shelby's friends paid him honors with a celebrity roast, making him the man of the hour. Hosted by comedian Skip Stevenson, the guest list included many of Shelby's friends from the past 40 years, each with an anecdote tailor-made for the event.
I figured that the reason that I'm up here first is because everybody up here is old enough to be my father, and they wanted the kid out of the way. Reg Parnell took Carroll aside in their early relationship and asking him to please acknowledge the slowdown signal in the pit with 2 fingers instead of the 1 that Carroll was using. And they wanted to know if Carroll would please scrape the goat shit off of his boots before he got in the race car. And could he possibly wear his overalls with the drop flap on the back instead of the front, and besides which, did he think he could keep it buttoned up?
And I always have to answer the question wherever we are together, what's he really like? And I only have one explanation. Carroll Shelby's the type of guy that would vote a town dry and then move. The only parody that I have, finally, to say about my friend, my 67-year-old pal, is this. It's a parody on Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. It's easy to grin when your ship comes in or you've got the stock market beat, but the man worthwhile is the man who can smile when his shorts get too tight in the seat. That, my friends, is Carroll Shelby. Bravo.
I remember the first sports car race I ever attended as a spectator was the Road America 500 in 1957. I'd never been to anything like that. There were the most beautiful cars I'd ever seen, most beautiful people I'd ever seen. Opulence everywhere. And in the midst of this opulence stood a man with bibbed overalls on. Now, to me, that looked a little strange, so I asked a nearby spectator, what's the story on this guy? And he said, why, that's Carroll Shelby. He's an internationally famous sports car driver, and he's going to be driving a red Maserati today. I said, shit, he looks like the international harvester driver. You know, the one who drives the red Farmall.
One thing he always told us in these meetings, we'd have these drivers' meetings. He says, Ferrari's ass is going to be mine. And I want to ask you, what happened to that piece of ass?
Thank you, Bobby. Thank you.
Here, racing great Phil Hill explains how Shelby once attempted to compliment Sir David Brown on his new Lagonda racer.
Say what you mean, would you please? David, I was just saying, you heard the old expression about how a dog can lap faster around the living room than a racehorse? Well, you know, the Lagonda just gets blibbity when the road goes first like this and then like that. And it's like a racehorse would be a blivet in the living room. At this point, David Brown, annoyed and embarrassed, said, Carroll, stop this nonsense and explain yourself. What is this blivet? Well, damn it now, David, I didn't know I was going to get no 3rd degree. I was just trying to tell your friends about the car. Now you've done it. You backed me right into a corner, and I never wanted to have to tell you this, but you want to know what a blivet is. That Lagonda is a blivet. And where I come from, a blivet is 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound sack. So at any rate, I suppose some of you have heard that story a little bit, but it needed to be told in more detail. So it's been wonderful being here. Thank you all so much. Sorry.
Carol, I'm sorry I can't be at the roast tonight, because if there's one guy I've had fun with for 30 years, it's old Shell. I first met him in my Ford days back in the 60s, and we did a big muscle car together. You may have heard of it, the Shelby Cobra. Shelby took the first one off the line, and he told me to take number 2. I told him no, the clutch was too heavy. So I passed, and Shelby's got a priceless museum piece today, and I've got nothing. Seriously though, Carol, you've made the auto business a lot more exciting and a lot more fun for me all these years. You are a classy guy and a real friend. In my book, the last thing you needed was heart. You always had plenty of that. Lee Iacocca, chairman of the board, Chrysler Corporation.
As if laughter really is the best medicine, many of the roasters made references to Shelby's recent heart transplant.
Carol didn't realize that this would be one of his first encounters with heart trouble. The farmer's daughter actually had a heart problem. So the father said to Carol, he said, son, I think I should tell you, before you make up your mind, my daughter has acute angina. And Carol says, boy, I'll say she does. Yeah.
So,
well, regardless of questions about his heart, I think there isn't any doubt whatsoever that his name is firmly embedded in the lore and the legend of U.S. and world motorsports. As a driver, an entrepreneur, a manufacturer, a politician, he's done it all.
It's been a pretty bad situation. You know, I think you really understand what's going on. And here's a man who's been to the top, and he's got a tremendous pressure to maintain this image. You know, he's got a house in Bel Air, yacht down the Sea of Cortez, private island off of Baja, you know, huge cattle ranches. Been a race car manufacturer. You know, he's a chili baron, a celebrity and everything. And, you know, fact is, folks, the guy's dead broke. Yep. The reason you're all here tonight is you're paying for it. You know? He's unemployed. There's no visible means of support. You know, there's no gainful employment. It's sad. You know.
But as fate would have it, I got someone to talk. Gurney said he dresses funny, always has. So what? The bib overalls were always clean, more or less. The wide brim hat was always well cocked, pardon the expression. And the cowboy boots, depending on the time of day, were almost always on the correct foot. What can you ask? In fact, close to 30 years ago, almost before rock and roll was born, Shelby became an idol, making fashion statements, winning races, and attracting groupies. Right here. And what a great feeling I know he has with all you people here tonight.
Towards night's end, Rick Cole auctioned off an original Keith Collins tapestry, with all proceeds going to the Cedars-Sinai Hospital. Later, Shelby himself ended the event with an uncharacteristically humble acknowledgement of his doctors and care unit.
Sold $20,000. Give him a round of applause. What's your name, sir?
I want to thank
the unit, if you'd stand up. Dr. Trento, Debbie, and all of you. Thank you for giving me an extension in life so that I can enjoy these guys that I've known for, a lot of them for 40 years. A lot of you in the audience, my children, my grandchildren, all the people that are so important to me, and I hope that I can give something back for making my life so complete tonight. And I want to thank all of you, and especially my friends here that took time out from their busy schedules to come and make it a successful evening. Thank you all.
Here's an opportunity to receive a free copy of William F. Buckley's historic Agenda for the 90s.
When you get National Review, you'll have news and opinions you don't find anywhere else.
Call this toll-free number now, and we'll send you absolutely free and with no obligation this copy of Agenda for the 90s.
For a trial subscription to National Review for only $24.95, call toll-free 1-800-767-8500. That's 1-800-767-8500.
That'll be a charge.
We interrupt this purchase for a reminder.
Don't forget, Santa.
'Tis the season to be choosy.
That's it.
So choose the card that actually pays you cash back for every charge. The Discover card.
That's a great idea.
You sure know how to pick them. It pays to Discover, the card that pays you back. When Acura asked if we would design a new tire for the extraordinary NSX, we responded very quickly. Yokohama, where Acura turned for ultra-high performance.
Dumb, you jerk! I hate you! You're so stupid. You're
Words like these can hit as hard as a fist.
You were never born.
Get the picture. Stop using words that hurt. Start using words that help. For helpful information, contact us.
Here's an opportunity to receive a free copy of William F. Buckley's historic Agenda for the 90s.
When you get National Review, you'll have news and opinions you don't find anywhere else.
Call this toll-free number now, and we'll send you absolutely free and with no obligation this copy of Agenda for the 90s.
For a trial subscription to National Review for only $24.95, call toll-free 1-800-767-8500. That's 1-800-767-8500.
FNM and USA Today salute the best of 1990, all next week at 4 p.m. as we award the top CEO of the year, marketer of the year, guru of the year, entrepreneur of the year, and money manager of the year.
Find out who made it to the top in these exclusive year-end awards all next week on Market Wrap at 4 p.m. Eastern.
On Auto Trends, we continue our coverage of the excitement at Palm Springs with a look at the vintage auto race, which has inspired plans to build a multi-million-dollar racing complex. Also, you'll see our exclusive interview with Carroll Shelby. Discover what the future holds for this automotive entrepreneur. All this and more on our next edition of Auto Trends. That's all for today's show. We hope you've enjoyed this look at the Rick Cole Palm Springs auction and our tribute to Carroll Shelby. We'll see you again on our next edition of Auto Trends.
This has been a Financial News Network presentation of Auto Trends, featuring the latest in automobile.
everyone, and welcome to Auto Trends, television's automotive authority. I'm Richard Saxton, in for Mike Wagner. Thanks to the annual Cole Yakubian auctions, Palm Springs, California is rapidly becoming a popular spot for those involved in the collector car business. But the auction is only one of the many events that center around the Palm Springs Vintage Auto Race. Under the warm desert sky, a diverse and plentiful array of vintage racing machines dot the landscape of Palm Springs Ruth Hardy Park. This annual meeting offers enthusiasts the chance to examine and exhibit some of the most significant vehicles in the development of racing. But as enjoyable as it may be to see these sleek machines, their owners can tell you it's even more fun to drive them. Each year, the Palm Springs Vintage Auto Race has given the owners of these classic roadsters, rails, and racers the opportunity to take them out from under wraps and use them as they were meant to be used, as top-of-the-line race cars. The streets surrounding the Wyndham Hotel are transformed into a raceway, allowing these expensive exotics and domestic race cars the chance to once again go for the gold.
We were asked by the city of Palm Springs to take this event over. We decided it was an excellent opportunity to provide a first-class vintage racing event for all of our friends that we vintage race with across the United States. And that's why we did this.
Beginning this year, the Vintage Grand Prix will be called the Palm Springs Road Race in an attempt to attract an even wider variety of historical vehicles to the four-day event, which already includes the race, the sports and racing auction, a 200-plus vehicle concours d'elegance, and a vintage motorcycle auction. And yet, the event continues to grow. Enter the Palm Springs International Raceway. Their proposed $75 million world-class complex is being developed by multimillionaire businessman Frank Archiero. No stranger to racing, Archiero believes Palm Springs will make an ideal spot for the many uses of the raceway.
I have a big interest in Palm Springs because I do want to build an international raceway in Palm Springs. This will be the only race in Southern California which we're going to bring the stock cars, sports cars, champ cars, all kind of a racing activity in this racetrack which would benefit the city tremendously, dollar-wise. It would, I hate to tell you how much the city would benefit on it.
The raceway is comprised of a full-blown facility. It's an all-purpose facility. It has a 1.6-mile oval, 2.25-mile road course, quarter-mile drag strip. It comes with a major automobile racing museum, 200-room hotel, 6-story office structure, driving schools, paid parking for about 20,000 cars, permanent seating for about 35,000 people, pit suites, corporate suites. And it's a real full-service deal. And what it does for the city of Palm Springs is it gives us international recognition. The television, every major event, which we hope will be eventually up to maybe 8 major events, will have 2 to 3 hours of nationalized television. That's a great advertisement because you're sitting in Chicago in January and you're looking at this weather. You think suddenly that maybe I'd rather be in Palm Springs. So those are all reasons we want to locate in Palm Springs.
Well, it's kind of a mixed emotion. There's a lot of people who want it, a few people don't want it, but we're going to try to convince the people who want it that it should be a good deal for the city, because everybody benefits. The city benefits, the citizen benefits.
With completion scheduled for late 1992, the Palm Springs complex will become the first multi-course, multi-purpose facility built in the U.S. in 20 years. and will help seal the resort community's growing reputation as a major motorsports capital.
$7,000.
There's a kind of meditation that a stuntman goes through.
Welcome back to Auto Trends. A new event for the Palm Springs weekend was the introduction of a motorcycle auction, which offered an interesting look into this burgeoning marketplace for many prospective car investors. Rick Cole has long been known for his auctions of premier sports and racing cars. Yet this year, Cole introduced a new event to the rapidly growing Palm Springs weekend, a motorcycle auction.
$7,000.
The auction brought enthusiasts from across the country who sang the praises of this growing investment market.
I think it's getting better all the time. It's a popular thing. The cars are more expensive. The cars that we're looking in this parking lot here on the grass here, what are you starting at $100,000, and you can get a motorcycle that's custom, something that's kind of exotic, 50 style Harley for $10,000, $15,000. And it's an investment piece, and you can have a lot of fun on it in the weekends.
The classic bikes hold their value and appreciate considerably. Somebody could buy a basket case, that's a motorcycle that's in poor shape, for anywhere between $3,000 and $10,000. Put anywhere from $3,000 to another $10,000 into it and double their money. And a lot of people are doing that. There are a lot of people also that are just making a bike look nice and selling them at auctions. You have to be very careful, very leery of buying a bike at auction, especially when they don't start the engine and literally drive them through. If you notice the car auctions, they drive every car through. I don't know why they don't do it with a motorcycle. I often wonder. And I'm always trying to convince the auctioneers and the people running these events to do that. And I think it would be fair to the buyers, and it would keep the sellers honest.
Since the prices have put these cars out of reach for the moderate collector, many interested car lovers who had come for the racing found themselves drawn to the possibility of buying a motorcycle.
Prices are way down. $1 million cars you can buy for $100,000, $700,000 today, which is absurd to me, but that's neither here nor there. Please forgive me, all my car buff friends. Motorcycles, a lot of people are getting into buying them across the country relatively inexpensively and bringing them back, giving them paint jobs, putting tires on, cleaning them up, tuning them up, selling them for $1,000 or $2,000 profit. There's a good market for motorcycles in Los Angeles, probably your strongest market in the country.
Everybody knows about the cars because they continually watch the values plummet. An 88 was selling for around $250 to $275 last year, and this year, 1 year later, they're selling for about $170, $180.
And while it may be true that some aspects of the collector car market have grown placid as of late, investors offer optimistic outlooks on the future of the motorcycle marketplace.
The market, I don't think, will ever be soft on true, correct classics, on beautiful bikes that are in demand. They will always hold their value. I don't care what the economy's doing. There will always be somebody that'll have some money for a bike like that.
You're in a fight for your life. The enemy is in your sights, and you're blazing away in the most memorable dogfights of the century in an explosive new video series, Air Combat. Never before on video or television, this action-packed collection takes you up with the first flying fighters and keeps sending you into action in the finest fighting machines ever built for a dangerous daredevil ride through the sky wars of the world. You'll have a Spitfire at your side and a Messerschmitt under the gun in the Battle of Britain. Riding shotgun in a P-51 Mustang, you'll be there for the bombing of Berlin, and you'll have your hands full in a Hellcat as Zeros swarm the skies over Midway. In air combat, you'll streak over Korea in a Saberjet to face the menace from Mig Alley, fly a chopper right into the thick of the enemy's Vietnam jungle, and swoop into valleys of danger in the thundering Fa-18 Hornet. Dive into one mission after another as air combat pushes all the right buttons with dramatic footage that never misses the target. Call this toll-free number now and get your first cassette, The War Aces, for the low introductory price of only $9.95. The top guns of all time show you the right stuff with an eagle's eye view of air combat. Keep it and another exciting video will follow. Cancel anytime. You'll also receive free The Fighting Flying Tigers, a bold, uncensored stereo adventure of guts and glory, fought in the stormy Burma skies. The enemy surrounds you, death is nearby, and danger never leaves. These are the times when heroes are born. Take off with them in the high-flying adventure of the Air Combat Video Collection. Don't miss it.
Call 1-800-826-7666 and get your first tape, The War Aces, by charging it, or send 1245 to Air Combat Box 5079, Clifton, New Jersey.
The highlight of this year's Palm Springs weekend was a tribute to automotive legend Carroll Shelby. Auto Trends had the honor of talking to Mr. Shelby about his past accomplishments and his future plans. Carroll Shelby has been racing since he was 29 years old. Now at the age of 67, Shelby's pursuits have mellowed somewhat, but he still remains in the fast lane of the automotive world. His many contributions to both racing and sports cars, including the Sunbeam Tiger, the Cobra, and the Shelby Mustang, have closely paralleled his rise in popularity, much to his amazement.
Did I ever think that the Cobra would bring $1 million? Not in a million years. We couldn't sell them for $5,900 back then. People didn't come taking them away from us. I am just as amazed as the rest of the world is at the way that cars have appreciated and what the prices they're bringing today. Probably the reason the cars of the 60s are appreciating so right now is because you can't build 400 and 500 horsepower cars anymore. Emissions keep you from doing that. Chevrolet's coming out with their new 4-valve Corvette, and it has way less horsepower than a lot of the muscle cars had in the 60s. So I think we'll just have to wait and see. You never know what's going to be a collector's car. I think a lot of it has to do with inflation. It's just not automobiles. It's there's a lot of collectibles, coins, and a lot of things that have appreciated very quickly because I think that there's a lot of wealth in the world. There's a lot of inflation in the world. There's a lot of instability in certain parts of the world, and this is something that's tangible, something that automobiles are tangible, and I think that people are just trying to protect their flanks financially is the main reason.
Since the 1960s, Shelby has maintained close relationships with several car companies, most recently Chrysler. The offspring of this merging is the new Viper.
The Viper is meant to be an exciting sport car with a lot of nostalgia built into it. We're not trying to go high-tech. We're not trying to build a car with four-wheel drive, with four-wheel steering, with all the electronic gadgets you can possibly build into a car. We're trying to build something that is reminiscent of Cobra. We're looking for an automobile, first of all, that has a lot of performance. to compete with the Corvettes and the Ferraris and the Porsches and the other cars of the world. But we're not looking for something that is expensive. We are probably, although we're a little more conservative than the other companies, as far as our racing programs, we do have some very exciting cars now and some that are coming along. And I think that you'll see Chrysler building these exciting cars with a little more sense of conservatism possibly than some of the other companies. I think it's best in the long run because insurance regulations and insurance costs are going to force you to keep it within reasonable bounds.
Shelby's views on the future of automotive production and performance are frank and honest, if not as optimistic as many American manufacturers would like.
As far as excitement in the automobile business, I think, sadly to say, that much of it's going to come out of Japan. When they were making $7,000 or $8,000 a car back when the yen was 250 to the dollar, they put so much technology on the shelf for multi-valve engines, four-wheel drive, things that they have and don't have to develop. They have them developed now, and 250 and 350, up to 350, 400 horsepower engines. I think a lot of the excitement's going to come out of Japan. I've been so fortunate to have lived through a beautiful, wonderful era of the automobile. In my opinion, you'll never see the 60s again, because we're going to see, unfortunately, smaller cars, more fuel-efficient cars, cars that don't pollute the atmosphere, and I don't see anything in these things that are so necessary to protect our environment that is going to be beneficial to performance cars. So I think that I've been a very fortunate person to have lived during the time that automobiles will be looked back on 50 years from now, I imagine, as the golden era of the automobile. I'm looking forward to some interesting things. I still think that there's a little bit left in the old white hair up here.
Since his recent heart transplant, Shelby has maintained the same charismatic charm as well as the same insightful outlook on the car business and life in general.
The year and a half that I sat waiting for a heart, and I learned to live within myself a lot more and do a lot more reading, and I'm at peace with the world now and not having to jump on an airplane every 2 or 3 days and go somewhere else in the world. And I'm smelling the roses, as they say, for the rest of the time that the good Lord lets me stay on this earth. And I'm kind of kicking back. I still consult with Chrysler, and we have our new Viper coming out, which I haven't been able to do much about for the last 18 months because of my physical condition, but I intend to get back into that program. And also the Can-Am car that I've built that I've kind of let go by the wayside due to my health, but now I want to get back into that and building a few old Cobras that I never finished. Spend a little time with my grandchildren and some time down in Mexico, which I love.
It appears that no matter what the future holds for Carroll Shelby, he's determined to enjoy each exciting moment.
We had our big World Championship chili cook-off and got our money for charity in October out in the Antelope Valley, and so there's really not a lot coming up in my life except smelling a few of the flowers right now.
I'm Robert Urich.
Events on this week's Auto Trends calendar include a Cruise International auction in New Orleans, Louisiana on December 8th. Also on December 8th, a silver auction in Spokane, Washington. On December 29th through the 31st, a cruise auction. From January 10th through the 14th, a Cruise International auction in Scottsdale, Arizona. On January 15th, a McLeod auction in Scottsdale, Arizona. And on January 16th through the 20th, the Barrett-Jackson auction in Scottsdale, Arizona. On February 8th through the 10th, a Cruise International auction in Boca Raton, Florida. On February 9th and 10th, a Van Reese auction in Fort Worth, Texas. And on February 10th, a silver auction in Seattle, Washington.
Next week on Auto Trends, a special holiday edition will introduce you to the latest and unique gift-giving ideas for the automobile enthusiast on your list. Plus, we'll take a sneak peek at the excitement the new year has in store. All this and more on our next edition of Auto Trends. That's all for today's show. We hope you've enjoyed our look at the excitement of the Rick Cole Palm Springs Vintage Auto Race and our interview with the great Carroll Shelby. We'll see you next week, right here on Auto Trends.
This has been a Financial News Network presentation of Auto Trends.